Your weather.
Yes, a little bit, a little bit. How are you?
I think there is some problem maybe with the connection.
Got too excited.
Claudia, I was thinking that maybe I share the poster, so it's a bit more.
Yeah, you can. Sure. Hi. So welcome to the Synthetic Landscape Lab Day 2 jury. Today we will start with this course of landscape. A bachelor course is a theory course that was led by myself with Maria with Katsova and the contribution of Artem. Maria, if you want to introduce the student, the guest, and the course, we can start. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I would also, should we introduce the full date of today first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so today we have quite a long day again. Just 1 second. I think I need to share another poster here. Sorry, not again the wrong one. Okay, so I wanted to introduce our second day. So today we will start with the presentations of the course Discourse on Landscape that I will shortly introduce. We will continue without the break with the Landscape and Ecology seminar that we are running together with Marco Paletto and Carvinian Enzinger. And after the lunch break, we will have the mixed review where you will have a chance to see the compilation of the different works of the course. We have a great list of the juries today, and we will be probably introducing them part by part to not take maybe today a lot of time. For the morning session of the Discourse on Landscape seminar, we have today Jordi Vivaldi Piera, who is a faculty at IAC, Innsbruck, and Bartlett UCL. He's a PhD a doctor of architecture from the Innsbruck University. He's also currently a postdoc in philosophy. So Jordi, that's absolutely great to have you today. We have with us Shengyu Men, and he's a graduate from UCL as, in a Master of Architecture, and currently he's a PhD candidate at the Synthetic Landscape Lab, University of Innsbruck. We also have today Chao, who is joining us, and she's the postgraduate from the RC16 of Bartlett School of Architecture and investigating the biodigital architecture. And of course, we have Dr. Marco Paletto, who is joining us the second day and giving us super inspiring comments. And I hope that you all already know all affiliations of Marco. Marco is one of the co-founders of Ecologic Studio faculty in the plenty best schools of architecture, and of course at the UCL Bartlett and University of Innsbruck. And we also have with us the faculty joining us and also participating in the discussion, Teresa Greskova, who is a PhD candidate at the Synthetic Landscape Lab, Carvinian Enzinger, who is also a PhD candidate in the faculty at the Synthetic Landscape Lab. Did I forget anybody? And I see that Artem Konevsky, a great part of this of the faculty within the seminar, is joining us today. Hello, Artem. Many thanks to join us. And Artem, he is a part of Stelka Institute in Moscow, as well as a part of a Karen-Kam team, and doing a lot of investigation with machine learning and coding within art and architecture. So, and we were having the technical assistance of Artem through the seminar this time, and that has been a great pleasure. I think I need to introduce briefly the seminar. I will close the sharing to maybe see now everybody. So Discourse on Landscape is the theoretical seminar, and we have the subtitle of the seminar Discourse on Landscape towards the synthetic intelligence. And basically the seminar is questions the role of technological intelligence within the design process. We consider artificial intelligence or machine learning as an instrument of knowledge magnification that helps us to perceive features, patterns, correlations through the vast space of data, in our case, the text data and visual data. Students' research presents a methodology for reading and decoding large sets of text and visual archives in order to set up a new visual and verbal, maybe, narrative for architectural research and for architectural drawing, as well as to shape their personal theoretical statement. At the first step of our research, we were first reading, discussing, and through the discussion, setting up the narrative and started to write the articles. In the chat, just in case, I will share once, I will just in a few seconds share once again the link for the article compilation, and you can get familiar with the articles that students were developing throughout the seminar. As a second step, we started to play with machine learning, and we were using machine learning to help us to generate the narrative, to help us to dig through the text archives. And we were using Generative Pre-trained Transformer 2, GPT-2, that guys are already now familiar, as an instrument which helps us to read the large sets of text and experiment with that. Later on, we were using VQ-GAN, it's a vector quantized generative adversarial network, for visual experiments. And this network learns a code book of context-rich visual parts. And in our research, it becomes an instrument to create a visual narrative. Connecting text and like in images, so basically that was this step. And we were using CLIP code as the instrument which helps us to convert the generated visual experiments, that basically the GAN drawings, into the video to create the final narratives. And I think all the steps, it was quite a complex methodology for guys to go through. There was the set of experiments, both with the theory and with the coding, to come to the visual outcomes. I open up for the presentation, and I was showing the schedule just a few seconds ago, guys, so you could all see who is starting and who's going first or second. Is Emily here now? If not, we are starting with Isabel Kager. Isabel, we invite you to present. Are you here?
I'm here, sorry. I'm just looking for my presentation. Okay, I got it. Now screen sharing. I hope you see it now.
Yes, please remember that we have 4 minutes for the video and the presentation, so let's keep it sharp. Thank you very much.
So hello everyone. Today I will give you a presentation on my article, Urban Planning and Mindset, Required Change and Integration of Natural Patterns. Developing and improving my article, I used the machine learning tools GPT-2 text generator and GAN video and image generator, which was helping me discover new perspectives and visualize my thoughts. Reading several articles that all contribute to a discourse on landscape, but by having different main emphasizes made me realize that we urgently seek a more ecological and organic surface in order to at least secure our quality of life. So what went wrong? And I asked the machine that question, and it gave me one really interesting answer I discovered to be quite fitting. And it says, I think some of the problems we currently face are consequences in which civilization work. Since Western civilization consists of hierarchies of power, we typically find ourselves in hierarchies of beliefs and practices. And I was trying to answer that question myself and focused my study on Gregory Bateson and John Goodburn, what made me reevaluate our relationship with nature. And both describe it as an alienation process that I discovered to be evolutionary, lingeringly beginning decades ago. And we mentally and physically separated and are no longer immanent. Like you can see, for example, this flower is becoming from its environment, relatively independent bird. We rather used inorganic material and created an unnatural surface, seeing non-human life as an obstacle. And our relationship with nature is toxic, and climate change is just one symptom. We are at a dead end. We're questioning our mentality. There's no option. Since Western civilization is based on this hierarchy, no one wants to descend. And this leads me to the question how to change our system without the devastating side effects of a system crash. And in my opinion, the only peaceful option we have is applying an ecological, sustainable mindset to our actions. And therefore, we as architects must construct interrelated with our natural environment and spreading awareness in order to secure our ecosystem. But like Gregory Bateson already said, to probably understand ecosystems, we need to find ways to ecologically think, recognizing ourselves as a part of the system being observed and interacted with. And that starts by recognizing us as a part of a natural ecosystem instead of feeling superior and becoming immanent again. We need to adapt our construction eco-friendly to our environment in order to avoid any further damage, and not the environment to us. Like you can see, for example, here in these pictures, the city is almost fading into its natural environment. And through integration of natural structures, patterns, and materials like these, for example, we can create a new infrastructure. And if we continue doing so, a more ecological structure will be established and dominate and force you all to adapt. And I will now show you my video. Yeah, I hope you hear the sound. No?
We don't have a video and we don't have a sound.
Yeah, it does not start. I have the video here.
But we don't see it, but we hear it.
You don't see it? Oh no, okay. One more time. I hope you can see it now. So thank you for your attention, and these were my references.
Thank you very much, Isabel. I
Thank you.
invite Laura Kopp to present next.
Yes, hello.
And we will have a short comments after presentation of Laura.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Not the full screen.
The full screen?
We see your PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay, so hi and welcome to my presentation about emotional landscapes, the non-physical constructions of the human non-consciousness and consciousness in relation to landscape. About my vision. Emotional values of the human consciousness connect to landscape. Our whole behavior and mental situation is influenced by our social and built environment and the other way around. Landscape breathes in uncountable variations of deepness, sound, intensity, and length. Listen to it. So, in my opinion, emotional parameters need to be concerned in order to build the best possible surrounding. And there are obviously aspects which we incorporate conscious, but way more interesting are the aspects we incorporate unconscious. And this communication and conversation is so multisensual and sensitive that the GPT and the image generation really helped me to visualize these emotional connections. Blakey Remus stated, the cognitive unconscious includes all the mental processes that are not experienced by a person, but that give rise to a person's thoughts, choices, emotions, and behavior. And by that, I would like to indicate, or she already indicates, how we connect to the surrounding and how it impacts ourselves, totally non-tangible, even if the landscape is totally tangible. So this was a quote that was generated saying non-consciousness is that it is not a fact of nature, but a fact of development. Thus, the webs of history are not a record of the past, but a record of the possibilities for the future. And I think the images really show how the landscape is a progress and how it's made out of different time zones maybe and energy fields. And I think the atmosphere is very pretty and it really shows how it's an ever-changing movement. These are some images that were generated too, showing how emotionally charged this relationship can be. And I want to relate to Stephen Shaviro too, because he said, these feelings are themselves generated from encounters with objects, fields, and energy flows all around it. Yeah, and I think even if our emotions and our hallucinations are triggered by a physical, it's very important to know that it's not materialistic what we like develop in our brain. And yeah, so I generated these images too, and these are my favorites because in my opinion, they really show how we connect to landscape and how our brain connects to it and how these hallucinations develop and improve in our head. These are other images that were generated. And now I would like to show you my video. So that's it. These were my references. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you very much, Isabel, for the presentations. I propose to open for the comments, and I will share with you again the work of the girls to make it a bit easier to comment. so you could see the videos. I propose to open up for the discussion. I hope that the narrative and also the structure of the work has been clear from the first presentations. So basically, the way how do we control the image generation is through the text and through the reference images that guys and girls were using and studying in the previous analysis, and of course in the previous step of the research. And of course, for us, that's a great question also to think how technological algorithm or technological intelligence might be participating in the role of this drawing generation. I invite you to maybe start the discussion. Jordi, you are a bit more familiar with the narrative of the seminar and more like already saw the work of the students. Do you have any feedback from your side?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I mean, congratulations to both of you. I mean, I think it's a super suggesting work, especially all the relation with how you instrumentalize AI as a method. I think it's great. In the first case, in the case of Isabella, what I find great is this emphasis on the nature culture continuum in a manner that is not ecological. If by ecological we understand the ecology of the 70s, no, like if we think in the Blue Marble, if we think in Buckminster Fuller when he was saying that we are the pilots of the spaceship, and it seems that what you're stressing is that we are a spaceship ourselves, that we are not in a privileged piloting position, but we are part of it, no? And I think that makes a shift in relation to how ecology was being understood in the 70s, also in relation to the limits of growth, in this sort of nostalgic recovery to a mother nature. I don't see this narrative in your case. I see a different approach to ecology. Something that made me think is that when you somehow show how this thinking operates, or how this relation with nature should operate, and you show it in a visual manner, which I guess is the visuals that AI gave to you, I see still a very idealized approach of nature, no, very green, with all the patterns that we traditionally have associated with nature as it is read in the Western tradition, since you were speaking about the Western world, no? And I think that here there is room for thinking more, no? If this visualization of nature it's still underpinned in the ideals, in the visual ideals that we conventionally have been associating to nature, no? Because I see that they keep appearing the same sort of configurations. So in the second case, in the case of Laura, I think it's super interesting your approach to synesthesia and hallucination. We were speaking about that. My thoughts here were that sometimes, in order to not be anthropocentric, sometimes we end up being anthropomorphic, no? Which means that we project. So in order to not appear ourselves as something distinct from nature, what we do is that we project on nature all our traits. So we somehow become one with nature through this manner, no? And there were some moments which I thought that while you were speaking of this connection of nature, it seemed that you were somehow stating that nature could be an entity susceptible of having a consciousness or of having a non-consciousness, no? And that would be a manner of anthropomorphizing nature somehow, with the target somehow of not being anthropocentric. So I understand the target, but does not necessarily mean that some of our traits are adequate to read nature, no? So anyhow, beside this point, which is more for thinking and for debating, I think the connection with all the consciousness and consciousness, I think here you would have a lot of room for theories of Lacan, of Freud, the ego, the superego, the ID. I mean, how all this would fit, how let's say obsolete are all these theories of Freud, of Lacan, when we want to approach it from the point of view of today. So you raise really many questions here. So that's why I think it's also a great work. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Georgie, for the feedback. That's always great.
Maybe I jump
else?
in.
Yeah.
I think that first of all, it's really nice to see a kind of a fresh approach to seminar of this kind, and it's I think it's a very, in a way, brave, everyone involved to try and go for it. Of course, it's a kind of new territories, for many, I'm sure. And so that must be congratulated. I think George already picked up a lot of really interesting topic, and again, this is interesting in itself that already with such a small work, it's possible to have conversation of this level. So this is very good to both of you, I think. I kind of found the narrative of Laura a little bit more, let's say, in tune with the images and with the visual. So in a sense, maybe what would be interesting for me to suggest to Isabel, but in reality, in general, is how to establish maybe a more proactive kind of engagement with the visual landscape that is emerging, from these algorithms. And in a sense, of course, every one of us can relate to these visuals in a different way. But at the same time, I think that maybe there is a way to try to play the game, go along a little bit more. No, maybe I would have enjoyed hearing, the narrative has a kind of a feedback, of you to the images and to the emerging landscapes. And if I understand correctly, these are produced through images that you have researched and collected, right? They were not given to you before as such, right? So in a sense, there is already like a kind of a underlining visual language that comes from your intuitive selection of images or interest, etc. But then, of course, when they are processed through the algorithms and they re-emerge out as a these kind of well, in some cases perhaps unexpected form or morphologies or patterns, and that of course are in a way suggestive to us of different things. And again, I think it's interesting to try to engage with that a little bit more directly. I think as a method of investigation, it would be fun. And I think Laura did that, I think maybe a little bit more, but yeah, I mean, I think that's obviously something that takes also a little bit of time to develop, but in a sense, it connects quite beautifully to the kind of design work that you and we are doing across the whole lab, where we always try to use the drawings and as not just a kind of a rendering of some ideas that we have, but really as a kind of a terrain or milieu in itself to engage with. And so I think in this case, what you have created is another whole other level of drawing technique, if we can say, to engage with. And I think we should we should try to do that very actively, and it will be fun.
Thank you very much, Marco, Giorgi, for the comments. I know that maybe some others have some more input. What if we see the set of other three and we continue the discussion? No? So perfect. I would like to invite to the next presentations Gaia, Teresa, and Ariana. We start with Gaia.
Nature has laws that may not even take human characteristics into account. It is, however, quite remarkable to note how nature, without needing to, without being constrained by anything, has been able to modify its general conditions to allow man to exist. Following this brief introduction, my investigation will focus on the relationship between man and nature and the complex relationship between their respective intelligences. In fact, these intelligences, which are very difficult to define, are more similar than one might think. Reflecting on this, I asked myself some questions before and during the use of the GPT-2 system. So why not to try to achieve a beneficial and constructive coexistence? How can these two intelligences be merged to create an effective and advantageous hybrid? In an increasing number of disciplines, biotechnological studies and processes are being developed and disseminated. In other words, characterized by the hybridization between the bioecological and technological areas. But what is intelligence? Is there only one, or can it manifest itself in various forms? What is that really makes the difference between human beings and other species? Stephen Shaviro's book, Discognition, precisely discusses this issue. What is consciousness? Which entities are actually conscious? And what does it mean to think, perceive, or feel? It is hard enough to explain human intelligence, and even harder to explain plant intelligence. But today, it is more than an hypothesis that plants are capable not only of receiving environmental signals, but also of transmitting them rapidly. Plants do not remember faces or emotions, but they can remember particular environmental conditions that they have encountered in the past, and the appropriate physiological response to these conditions. In conclusion, intelligence is a concept that's rich and it is elusive, made up of logic, heart, experience, learning, and effort. Also, plant intelligence is therefore a very broad field, and we probably do not yet know its full potential. Of course, there are many differences with human intelligence, but there are also many similarities that are worth studying and exploring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kaya. I invite Teresa to give the next presentation.
Hello.
No, Teresa.
So you see my screen?
Yes, we see it.
Yes. Perfect. So hello, everyone. My topic is living architecture. But first of all, why did I choose this topic? Yeah, I think climate change and resource-saving building are combined almost every day. And I heard about bricks, which are made of fungi before. But when I get to biodigital aesthetic, I was really impressed. and I never heard about a microorganism which have the property to convert air pollution and waste. So I start to work with it, and the first step was to ask the machine what is biodigital aesthetic, and I get several answers which were quite fitting, and one of them was biodigital architecture is emerging as a widespread practice within the contemporary economic. And in a second step, I create images. And one thought that guides me was the problem that the huge amount of trash we make destroys the environment dramatically. And I thought about how can we solve this problem because the half of the population live in cities right now. And the more people, the more waste. And yes, one solution is maybe to concentrate more on the network of trees and not on like infrastructure or something. And another solution is solar energy, which we are more or less using. And I think the most interesting solution is the cultivation of organisms which convert waste and maybe green the facets and yes, combine human and non-human networks. And maybe our cities in the future are covered with microorganisms. And to sum this all up, I create a video with the most fitting images. And I would like to show you now. Yes, this was my short presentation.
Thank you very much. Teresa, I invite Ariana to present next.
Good morning. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bit low res.
Good.
For some reason. Very low res.
Okay.
Maybe do not optimize the presentation for the video. Maybe it's
okay. Better now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, I'm Ariana, and today I'm going to talk about my research on the third landscape as the future over planning. So the term third landscape, the term third landscape was inspired by the proclamation in 1789. What is the third state? Everything. What is done so far? Nothing. What does it aspire to become? Something. So this term represents all these parks, large uninhabited areas, abandoned industrial spaces that have in common the absence of any human activity. The Lacanmines manifest on the third landscape uses this term to refer to a third state of being at the margins where the landscape belongs neither to the territory of shadow nor that of light. In a few words, is that space produced by humans and cities that are not accepted with society, or it does not belong to the natural surroundings. It comes from atmospheres such as darkness, gas, smoke, and living organisms such as weeds, insects, pigeons, and crowds. It is uncommon that nowadays, with the golden age of sustainable and green design, the conversation of architecture and nature always include a connection to natural forces such as sun, wind, water, and greenery. Instead, with my research, I wanted to talk about subnature, the other environment of architecture. David Giesens introduces us to other environmental forces that influence everyday life and the way architects have used natural or environmental construction to date. The building environment has always been used to cleanse, filter, or avoid these primitive elements that we also call subnatural. The definition of subnaturals, those forms of nature that are most primitive, dirty, and uncontrollable, comes from a set of things that are not usually addressed. in the interpretation of natural architecture. It's up to us then to be able to change this conception of architecture. Over time, few architects and designers have thought about an alternative vision of architecture, of an alternative vision of how architecture and urban design can reconnect with other natural processes to work with them in the same way they did with the residual forms of nature. So my questions: how can architects make a connection between often overlooked supernatural forces, the built environment, and social interaction with all of them to create a new sustainable approach? My video. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gaia, Teresa, and Ariana for the presentations. Again, to remind your beautiful work, I share my screen for a few seconds and invite everybody for the conversation. I think we could kind of drive it more continuously. Maybe if you also could want to catch up with some other previous projects and reflect in general on the visuals or something which touch you the most, that would be great as well.
Yeah, maybe I just jump in here. I think the overall narratives are like super inspiring. Like just looking at the visuals, like each image is kind of transforming into something completely new. So it kind of really opens up the imagination, for me at least. And then I think the combination between the narrative and the visuals are then super suggestive as well, because that kind of gives the framework how to look at the images in the end. So for example, the first one from Gaia, I thought it was really interesting, talking kind of about the what is intelligence and so on. And then we see these natural organisms kind of morphing and transforming into something else. So I was already kind of thinking like it's kind of a mixture between this artificial intelligence and the biological intelligence. And I think it's really inspiring work.
Thank you, Corby. Thank you very much. I think one of the parameters that we try to achieve is this coherency and kind of a visual language, which we were trying to drive through all the visual narrative now. And we were trying to focus on some specific parameters that we would like to control within the video. For example, like a generation of pattern or the color or any other features that guys were trying to drive through the video. And in order, like, the video aims to basically helps to open up the narrative and create like through the drawings.
I think it's been a really interesting experiment, and very experimental, as Paco pointed out. Maybe is still in its infancy. So I don't think we have a language yet. And for me, it's will be important to try and understand, as we discuss also in some of the tutorial or in the midterm, how do we connect the visual to the text, and which repertoire of visual we use. Because if we could work with a set of images that are, more correlated, as I said, with the geo pattern and catalog them, maybe we could put ourselves in a certain visual conversation that, from Bateson to Freiotto. At the moment, maybe I found that the alphabet we start from in terms of visual language, if we can call it alphabet, is maybe too wide. And I struggle to see a language emerging or a specific research. I think the course is very successful in opening up a method, maybe is still not conclusive in defining which language could actually emerge. I think we can be much sharper in deciding which case studies we start from in terms of visual, and maybe narrowing up the text a little bit as well. I think from the text side is already quite streamlined, because we have been setting up a bibliography that look at some of the authors we work more with, but maybe from the visual side is a little bit too wide at the moment, and we should try and narrow it down. Of course, the video are beautiful, but what else? What do they really build as a language? For me, it's still not clear.
I would like to connect directly to Claudia and Corbinian, because somehow ever since we started the presentations, first of all, thank you so much for the presentation for your project. It's really inspiring. But ever since we started connecting the visual with theory, which I really enjoy, and ever since I started to see these images morphing, I keep thinking of the input image, no? And as I understand it correctly, I hope, is that the students were choosing the input images themselves. And so the narrative of the whole project is still quite very much directed by us, or by human, and by our perception, and by our own sort of intelligence, and our own mapping of how we understand the topic and select a picture on themselves. So I was wondering what would happen if we create another set of automation where the image would be selected by the machine based on the text, on the keywords, and therefore we would maybe even eliminate our own preference at the beginning already. I don't know, just a speculation of the thoughts I was having ever since I started to see these visuals, how to even maybe push the boundaries of our own selection and preference and like and dislike. And
It's actually, like, just to maybe give a bit of, I see that Artem is also unmuted, maybe he will join to my comments, just to give you a bit more clarity on the process. So basically it is in the first step like this way. So we are first generating the text, the quotes, the narrative, the text narrative, and then we are using this text for the generation of the visual. So, and that was the first step, this clip, it was done to translate the text to the image. And then as the second step, we were using another algorithm, which helped us to open up the best image shots. Now, for example, when we actually found this type of the feature that we are developing, we were using another algorithm to open this up. And here we already had two inputs, not only the text, because it's quite difficult. Like we were trying to find the levels of control. So, and here in the second iteration, we had two levels of control. The reference image that now guys were selecting, but that image was the image which was the best of the previous step. So here there was a choice of the students when they were selecting the best from the previous generation, and plus the text, and they were starting to control the final outcome through two kind of points, no, the image and the text. But basically, the regional generation is a kind of how we translate the text to the image.
So all the images also generated by neural networks, and students work as a curator of which images to use to generate the final video, final visuals. So it's, of course,
I completely agree on the curatorial point of view, but when you curate, you can curate on different levels. You can receive a group of artists and then put together a narrative, but in general, when you curate, you have a specific agenda. And your agenda is then organized spatially or visually to describe, to tackle a discourse. And there are multiple types of curator, and I think also the intersection between curating architecture research is very interesting. But what I'm trying to understand is that, and I'm really brainstorming live here, is how do we really curate this in the sense of curating? Or even establish a conversation with the system, because that's a cybernetic conversation, but a cybernetic conversation is a conversation. So you need to start to get a sense of how your input will feed you back an output, and how you can, tune the dynamic. So for me, it's really important to understand this as next step, because I think actually visual language can have an incredibly important role in theory, but then how do we tune it so that it is not a decoration of the discourse, but actually is making the discourse?
All right, can I join a bit? Yeah. So firstly, I agreed with Corvinus about above 5 students join, so inspiring, and also have built a connection between the text and the image. But I also agreed with Claudia and others guests' comment about they could develop further because they are so potential to develop further. So I would like to make some suggestion on the technical aspect to help you improve the quality of the image. So the first thing is, I think most of you use the clip or the GPT tool to control the GAN model to generate the image, right? This tool is so convenient to use. So sometimes we forget we can organize the tool in a better way. For example, I don't know if you just use like one text to generate one image, then just totally change the text to another sentence to make the image. But for myself, I will change the sentence one word by one word, because the AIs understand the sentence is in a different way like human. So sometimes you just change one word, it will make a very significant difference output. So I will try to catalog all the input and output in a very similar text. Then in this process, you can gradually understand how the AI to understand the text we input, and then try to build up kind of the feedback loop, and then you can do the better control of the image. This is the first thing. The other thing is, if you already get an image, you think this one is quite potential to improve, then you can try to use some we call promotion trick on the Twitter. You can see some artists on the Twitter, they will use the word like file details or the style of Unreal Engine or like the meta painting something to enhance the style of the image. they will not change the content, but it will improve it will make it more sharp or make it more stylish. You can try a bit about that. This is the second suggestion. The third one is, I don't know if you use the pre-trained model or you train the model by yourself about the GAN model. If you use the pre-trained model, you can download different pre-trained model online. For example, the pre-trained model by WikiArt and the OpenImage and ImageNet. Some of the models have been trained on like millions of images. Normally, they will have much better performance than the model we made, because normally for myself, I only use like 10,000 images to train the model. Then it will be a very big gap between the performance of my model and the model like the Google or other company train online. And yeah, this is the third thing. And okay, yeah. So try different model, make catalog of the text, and try some promotion tricks. Yeah, this is my suggestion.
These are amazing suggestions. Thank you so much, Simon. And you are really seeing through all the algorithms yourself.
Yeah, you can find very interesting trick about this model they use on the Twitter from the artists. You can search a bit. It's very quite helpful to improve the image quality. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Simon. Should we move on? Anybody else with the last comments? Or we?
Yeah, just very quick 2 comments. One has to do that I think that sometimes we're confusing the relation in between a visual and a non-visual language with the relation in between a human and non-human intelligence. No, so I think that these 2 relations in between them are different, and sometimes we think that there is a incoherence in a AI-human conversation, but actually is an incoherence in the mere sense of how to visually translate something which is not inherently visual, no? And I think that these are 2 different problems. The second quick comment is that I think that we should not be so much scared about not being fully coherent or not being fully consistent or not being fully harmonic in which sort of trans-species conversations. I think that the whole point actually is to detect these decallages or these glitches and to see them as points of departure, no? And I would emphasize more the underlining of these decallages and see what do we find there, rather than the almost Faustic desire of converting everything in one full, consistent, single narrative that everything fits perfectly. No, I think it's very interesting precisely when we bring different voices to see how they somehow collapse and do not always get an agreement. I think here lies a lot of power, actually, rather than the forcing to really make it solid without any crack. Yeah, but anyways, that's all. Thanks.
I was sorry, I was trying to say something before, but then my computer shut down. I crashed out. I don't want to take too much time. I just thought that these 3 projects were interestingly connected to each other. For me, the whole idea of the third landscape and the sort of interest of these liminal zones where things happen in between, and the concept, of course, of waste being turned into raw material on the sort of more often than not. Precisely this happens in these kind of landscapes that often escape our sight and attention, and that's where bacteria are at work often in the urban realm, and so that's the side of nature that would be interesting to see more and more in these visuals as well, I think, as also Jordi was pointing out before. I think this maybe makes me want to ask the question. I think Gaia was talking about what is intelligence. I think another interesting question is where is intelligence, no? Which maybe for architects is even more interesting, no? Because of course we deal with space, we deal with material organization, and so in a sense, I think when you start thinking about these are concepts of third landscapes and like that you mentioned before, I think that brings the for me the interesting question of where is intelligence, where do we find this idea of intelligence you know, in ourselves, in our body, in our connection with the environment, in different conditions in the environment. So that's somehow, I think that that's what I also like to see when I see some of your beautiful videos. They become also kind of representations of where we may find intelligence in the world that surrounds us. You know? So yeah, I think that's really quite a fascinating set of projects in that sense. The way they also started to talk to each other, I thought it was quite nice.
Thank you so much for the comments, for the discussion. I propose to move on, and in order to catch up with a bit with timing, we will have now a group of 4: Bastian, Julia, Tobias, and Konstantin. Please get ready. We start with Bastian.
Yes. So you see my screen? Oh?
Yes, all good.
Which screen do you see? The video or?
We see the video.
Ah, okay. A little bit too early.
Still video, if you can drag it out. Ah, no, it's okay now, I guess.
So now the presentation. Yeah, as my topic is the analyzing the change in landscape. To define the topic, I divided into subtopics, and the first one was landscape, because it's obviously the main topic, or for the foundation of the main topic. And I asked the machine to define the topic, and it defined it like landscape is a rich and dynamic environment which its own unique geomorphology, topography, and ecosystems. As such, landscapes are highly mutable and may undergo a wide range of spatial and temporal mutational processes. And after that, I produced some pictures about it, which I think are very beautiful. Them also, and after that, a video which was produced. And the next topic then is also part of landscapes, and it is environment. It was defined, or the definition of environment was: environment is an ecological process that results from interactions between individual land use, climate change, and human activities. And environment is not limited to the land surface, with many species living in water bodies that are 10 to 100 meters below the surface. They also let the machine produce some images, and at the end video, and it gives a very different views on the topic environment. And because my topic is influence of humankind on landscapes, the next subtopic is humankind. It was defined like humankind is intimately interwoven with the environment, and humankind is a product of evolution, but also a consequence of the interactions of different forces that shape the landscape on which we live. It produced a really interesting outcome, because it's nothing I would define as humankind, but the machine did. And this gives us a very different point of view on the topic, and especially on humankind. The next topic is then urban sphere. Urban sphere was defined as: urban sphere is a key feature of the Earth system, and it is up to us to maintain its integrity. And urban sphere is a complex ecosystem consisting of over 2,000 biotic and abiotic systems, which act as a system interplay to modify and control one another. Also very interesting outcome, because I think urban sphere is in general a very hard to define topic, and especially to draw topic. And because of that, the images are very interesting. So the last 3 topics were interwoven in between, and also interwoven with landscapes, and got an impact on that. And the next topic is more to understand to understand the topic. It is comparison of landscapes, and comparison of landscapes was defined by landscape comparison is a crucial tool in understanding the spatio-temporal variation of landscape processes and the spatial patterns of changes in land use. Can be used to understand spatial changes in landscapes, and comparison of landscapes are often limited to a single point in time. The outcome is also very interesting because the machine worked with different materials, colors, and especially landscapes, and gives a very interesting point of view on the topic. And after that, I will present my points on the topic landscape change influenced by humankind. I think a change in landscape is not just influenced by humankind, but can be controlled by humankind. And also, comparison of landscapes are often limited to a single point in time. The machine also produced here some images and pictures, and I think they really show topic which is presented, and we can see some points which we can compare to points in reality. And in the end, I gave the picture from the beginning for the landscape to the machine, and let the picture change by environment, humankind, and urban sphere. And that was the outcome. At first the pictures and then the video. And I think it's a really interesting video because we can really see a change in landscapes. Yeah, exactly. And then I will come to my video. So that was a presentation, and in the end I have to say, I think there has to be a discussion and a discourse about this topic, and we have to understand the importance of the topic, because the effect of humankind on landscape and the consequences can be seen already, and the discussion will give us the opportunity to learn how to control the change in landscape, and that this will save nature with all its plants and animals and also human lives.
Thank you very much.
My sources, and thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Bastian. Julia, you present next.
So, hello everyone. I'd like to present you my topic, symbiosis between natural and human existence, ecological solutions for future architecture. First, we have to say art that manipulates or creates life must be pursued with great care, with acknowledgement of the complex issues, with races, and above all, with a commitment to respect, nurture, and love the life we create. Yep. Through my studies with GPT-2, I have understood that there are elegant and sustainable strategies to combine.
We don't see your slides, we see the PowerPoint.
No. Well. No?
Yeah, now it.
Okay, sorry for that. Yeah. To combine architecture with landscape discourses. We find ourselves in new structures and opportunities, a new design language for ecological and sustainable solutions in architecture. In order to create tomorrow, we need new intelligent forces to involve the environment and to live in symbiosis with our surrounding and nature. So, due to the exponential growth of our population and expanding cities, it is important to create sustainable housing and regain continuing green spaces. This can be achieved through the symbiosis between synthetic intelligent structures and architecture. In the future, it will be essential to listen to nature's answers and understand them to adapt, not the other way around, as we did. As architects, it is our job to combine these processes and develop a coherent, sustainable design. Aesthetic theory, particularly in its formalistic strange, focuses on actual form as opposed to concepts of form, offers alternative means for understanding how buildings, spaces, and objects can be reconciled with ideas about individual societal value. The starting point of these theoretical relationships is not conceptual, but aesthetic, sensate, and even emotional. Materially responsive architecture presents unique possibilities for designing novel performances and behavior in architectural space. This one, yeah. So GPT-2 takes these aspects and creates new design technical possibilities to reshape the landscape discourse in order to develop new sustainable strategies for dealing with urbanism. We have to break away from old structures. This means looking at the environment and all its complexity and its needs. Material ecology is an emergent field in design, denoting informed relationships between building, product, system, and the environment. Yeah, so now my video. Nature provides a space, inhaling our blindness and egoism, trying to survive. Yep, that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Julia. Tobias, the stage is yours.
Hello, my name is Tobias Niederholzer. I wrote my article about how we can use multi-agent systems in architecture. This quote caught my attention that technology is a product of the spirit, and naive materialists fail to understand this and see the product of technology, which is unfortunately the case in our time. Although it is a fact that today we live in an automated world and we cannot neglect this new way of living and this new way of machines interacting with us as humans. Machines are the engines that separate nature and man. There exists a certain dynamic between organism and machine, and there is a separation between function and non-function. The workman is not an organism who identifies himself only to the mechanical arts. It is relatively new to us to have such an intense relationship to machines. Combining all the different aspects of machines and nature together with a view to the demands of humans will give a way to machine intelligence that is more like a bridge being made. A very interesting field of machines is the one of swarm intelligence that I focused my article on, with which we are able to simulate and operate in a completely new way and create completely new designs and aesthetics. I think it is very important to implement those new ways of designs and strategies and learn how to use and manipulate them. This new technology is a part of our life and it defines how we interact with each other. But it also raises the question on how far we can take this approach. Will the machines someone be so complex that we cannot understand them anymore, or need another machine that produces the input for the machine because it would be too complex otherwise? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Tobias. Konstantina, you're presenting next.
Yes, can you see the screen?
Not full screen, but we see the screen.
Okay. Now?
Yep, all good.
So hello, my name is Konstantin, and I will present you my project, Moving Cities. So I want to start with a quote from Gregory Bateson, and it says, so by aesthetics, I mean responsiveness to the pattern which connects. And he tries to explain that it is necessary to transform not just ecological knowledge, but the very basis of science in general with an aesthetic dimension. And my project tries to find a solution for this statement in terms of city planning. Program terrarium. A program is always written in the form of text. Why can't a program be written and executed in the form of nature? Thousands of years, we shaped the nature to benefit in rural or constructive sense. Why can't we go back to the roots of humanity and build primeval huts with simply more intelligence included? Artificial bloom. In this picture, the automation of intelligent behavior and machine learning leads plants to a new evolutionary stage. The plants in this picture are accepting a symbiosis with their surrounding enemies, the construction. It overgrows the synthetic to learn from the structural composition. It encloses the dark past in a colorful taste of the future. Destructed machine. This machine learns from experience and can independently find solutions to new and unknown problems. We might have to deal with the dark, destructing consequences of climate change. Finding solutions to benefit from the destroyed environment is the key to succeed in a future world. Its new materialistic shape and resources will be needed. Split hope. Hope mobilizes the self-healing powers of our body. Hope is essential to give life a purpose. The color of hope and restart is white. The color of nature and balance, safety is green. Maybe we can split those colors and get a smooth transition to let them communicate in harmony. A new beginning with nature and its manipulation of humanity. The big chameleon tower. If the chameleon gets excited, the structure of the crystals changes. That is the GBT generated text that came out. And then I asked myself, why can't a building get excited and change shape in a way to create moving spaces? We could see buildings morphing constantly and adapting to our needs instead. The grown network. There are also the GBT says in information technology, a network refers to the connection of at least two systems. So why can't these two systems, why can't they be like nature and construction? You can see in this picture like different plants that are manipulated to grow in a way of staircases, platforms, and walls. Today it is possible to shape plants and nature by influencing the growing process. We need a way faster spreading organism that could shape our future. So the last quote is, ecosystems have to be considered as communicating and informational systems and even as mental systems, as minds, not just as material and energetic systems. This quote is also from Gregory Bateson, and I really liked it, and I think it brings on point what I tried to do in this in my project. And below you can also see some pictures how the construction grows over with the plants and how they live in the symbiosis. Then to my statement, we need to reconceive our surroundings and our environments to stop non-effective city building. We have to change. We have to reach a new way of thinking to not live in a future world being slaves of our environment. Nature is more essential than ever. Artificial and nature should not be opponents. Nature has to benefit from humans. A symbiosis between humans and nature is the cue for future urbanism. So thank you for your attention. And now I will show you the video. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Bastian, Julia, Konstantina, and Tobias for the presentations. I open again just to remind everyone your narratives and the titles. I invite everybody to comment. Do we still have some power?
Just said I was quite excited to see the urban sphere being represented through this technique. And I mean, as you may know, it's you know, the urban sphere is the title of my PhD, and I sort of explored the topic quite a bit. But when I tried to find a cover at the time, I came up with this one, which was the kind of you know, slime mold growing over a network, etc. But effectively, it's a concept that you know, been writing about, but difficult to represent in a sense. And I found it quite intriguing here. There are a few images that emerged from that section of Bastian work, I think, right? And that was yeah, it was quite fun to see and exciting to see in a sense. And well, at the same time, I think I have to say that I found Julia's work probably the most beautiful so far. That is purely as a kind of aesthetic appreciation of the whole discourse, sentences, images, the videos. I thought they were. It was really, really exceptional, and even the graphic layout, everything. So I enjoyed especially this bit here now where you see this kind of almost plastic waste flower thing. I don't know, that's at least how I kind of imagine it. There is a point in which it almost you begin to see something that looks like some kind of plastic bits being kind of slowly grown into sort of flowery formations. And again, I think even at a very simple level, it's a beautiful way to try to articulate you know, concepts and ideas we are all grappling with. You know, the pervasiveness of this hybridization of artificiality and biological life. It's everywhere, as we know. But it still becomes it's still difficult to articulate it when it comes to try to make sense of it on a different level beyond, let's say, what may be the kind of desperation for seeing some you know, landscape being contaminated in kind of horrible ways. And you know, on the other hand, there is this sense that you know, now these particles and elements are part of us, are in our body, are everywhere. And I think that this kind of representation in this video were really quite exceptional in that sense. But you know, again, I think well done to everyone. Really great experiment.
Thank you, Marco.
Yeah, and I'm wondering whether I can jump in now.
Sure. Ciao, good to hear you.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. So first of all, I want to say congratulations to all of you, because all of the images here you present, they are so impressive and they are so remarkable. And I think they are just breathtakingly. And I have to say here, I don't come to comment, I come to learn. Because first of all, I'm so happy to see that you make much more investigation and research on the technological part of the AI, because when I was studying UCL, what we learned is about the GAN image, about the cycle GAN. So I think this is the first year we try to introduce AI into the biodesign. So we're not sure what kind of things that AI can bring to us. So we are also not very sure about an ambiguous image that the GAN shows to us. But here I see that by introducing the GPT-2 techniques, as well as the psychogen, more of the advanced AI technology here, I can see that you really set a kind of bridge between the verbal language and the visual language, and you also set up kind of bridge between the human intelligence and the machinic intelligence. So I could see that it is a very kind of, a strong evidence to show that there's a kind of distributed cognitive and intelligence system, and such kind of system have already been established during your such kind of practice. So which I can see that such kind of augmented and distributed intelligence is probably what you call the synthetic intelligence here. So we can see that such kind of meaning searching work better carry out between human and non-human. So here I also see that you carry out many research on the theory part on that, which I think it could better help us to understand how such kind of meaningful, meaning searching work could carry out or could happen through the design project. So what I have here is maybe I would more suggest, it's not kind of suggest, it is a kind of my expectation. So I think the most important things for us is also about the value of the patterns. So how we recognize and explain the pattern it showed to us, and how or what kind of things does that kind of pattern indicate for us. So I think with such kind of mature technology and very good theoretical experiment, so I think we could just make the better experiment on how to introduce such kind of AI intelligence into our design. So I can't wait to see the biodesign in the age of AI. So finally, I want to say thank you to all of you, because I have learned a lot from all you guys. So I don't have much more suggestion. All I have is praise and thanks. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chao, for your comments and great feedback. We have a few last seconds, or should we go to the next series of presentation? Okay, so we move on. I invite to present, okay, let's again speed up a bit. Hannah, Arpad, let's see how it goes. We have also left Stefan, Daniel, and Thomas. Let's start with Hannah and Arpad, and we see how many people we see in this group.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah, can we handle 5?
Sorry?
So. Okay, let's start.
Okay. Welcome to my presentation. My topic is reinterpretation of anthropology in consideration of all beings. First, I will start with a personal statement. After that, I will show you some generated quotes, images, and GIFs by GPT. And then I will show you my final video and the references. First of all, my view is that anthropology needs to evolve and think past humankind. We must consider nature with all of its beings and unite human and non-human life. A cohabitat for humans and beings is necessary to preserve our world. We can use new technologies like photogrammetry, digital parameters, new materials, and many more to achieve this. The quotes generated by GPT are: anthropology is not a matter of explaining what happens to people when they adopt certain urban habits. It's a matter of changing habits of thoughts. The second one is the environment is out of tune, and the last one is nature does not know about evolution. It does not care about what happens between animal and man. This is my first picture. It's based on the Q diversity of beings, and the program generated a coral reef-like image, which I think is very fitting. And the second one is people are linked to a wider world of life, and you can see human-like shapes that are fading into the background. These are my GIFs, 2 of them. And I think especially the right one is really fitting for the theme because the building is kind of taking over. Yeah. And here's my video. Oh, my video. And these are my references, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Hannah. Arpad, we invite you to present.
Okay, so hello and welcome to our presentation, E-based algorithm versus ant pheromones, a competition between artificial and swarm intelligence. The first step was to find a pool of references for my topic, then write an article about it, and finally letting GPT-2 extract some main statements according to the 5 keywords of my article, which were artificial and swarm intelligence, effectivity, search algorithm, and shortest path. The output was again used to give GPT-2 a database for text visualization. I've got some interesting results which shows us how the digital working process of an AI searching algorithm could look like. Of course, the program visualized the structure of an ant stripe swarm intelligence 2, which is hard to detect within this swarming mess. This led me to the conclusion that in some cases, swarm intelligence is more effective, ergo faster, because its simplicity and abdication of double checking. But to get more precise results, there would be much more competitive experiments needed. For example, the tracking of a specific item instead of general speed test. Basically, the difficulties in the visualization and some interesting comments during the midterm presentation made me think about the definition and focus on the construction of AI and swarm intelligence. The main idea was to divide animals into their separate parts. With the Descartes approach, everything is a machine. First outputs got reused and reorganized, getting even deeper into the material. I wanted to see a basic source picture being turned into something that looks like a computer intelligence searching for a term. It's all about the process of searching. There has to be something that looks like the avatar of an AI flying through an endless library of information and possibilities, searching for that one specific term somebody wanted to be found. That's why my methods changed into transforming biological animals into robots, like if the skin is just covering the truth of their artificial intelligence existence. So I decided not to take Andy Clark's, but Descartes' approach of artificiality. The robotic aspect is not only an add-on, it's how they are constructed, what they consist of. Finally, it was interesting to see, according to GPT-2, how the creation or transformation of biological material into an artificial being could look like. Here you can see my references for further researches. Hopefully you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you for your attention. And that's it. I will show you the video. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. I propose to join two groups. So Stefan, we invite you to present next, and then we have Daniel, Thomas, and we have a last final comments.
Okay. So welcome to my presentation. The idea behind my work was to see if you can get people to live a more social life with the help of machines and architecture. A model for this more social life were insects that live in irregular colonies. For example, ants. The ants have a division of tasks. They do what assigned to them. This done by the individual ants without thinking of their own advantage. They work only for the swarm. So if you were to copy the structure of such an entity, reinterpret it and translate it into architecture, maybe humans then also behave more socially. For example, through wayfinding that encourage people to communicate with each other, or maybe like in this quote, to lose slightly the boundaries maybe in public space and private space. The other idea was to achieve this more social behavior with machines. If one remains with the example of the ants, this reacts to stimuli which cause other ants, and it would be conceivable that the human brain could also be manipulated by machines, generated stimuli to produce a more social way of life. This is a GPT quote. I think it's sum up the topic very well. For me, this means that the people are too different to be controlled specifically, and that is also not necessary because every person is different and should lead this more social way life on their own initiative. Then my video. Can you hear?
We don't hear the sound, but I think that's okay.
Okay. Oh, so. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. We go to the presentation of Daniel. Daniel? Okay, so we move to the last presentation of Thomas. Thomas, the stage is yours.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, all good.
Okay, so my topic is called Dream or Awake. And the reason I named it that is because I got a quote from the beginning of the semester from a book called How Forests Think. And in that book, it says that dreams spill into wakefulness and wakefulness into dreams in a way that entangles both. And that led me to think that there are three ways, which I'll explain later, to what I would call perceive reality. The first one is the conscious realm or the conscious mind. The second is the machine mind. And then finally, the subconscious mind. So like I said, those realms are my opinion on how we can perceive realities. And it will also answer the question of, can ideas and definitions that are computer made, can they be considered real or are they only illusions? So to answer the question of how do we perceive reality, if we ask the conscious mind, which would be our own mind, to define a term, specifically for this example, architecture, we would look to a dictionary. And the dictionary says that architecture is the art or science of building, specifically the art or practice of designing and building structures, and especially habitable ones. But what happens if we take this definition and ask the machine mind to define architecture? So the machine mind defines architecture as the forms and words that are used to communicate a circuit in the sky of humans. So that doesn't make much sense to us. So that led me to further try to define my my thesis. And in order to do that, I had to decide who is correct. Is the human mind, which is the conscious mind, or is the machine mind correct? And I would say it could be boiled down to rationality. So who is more rational? Is the human mind more rational, or is the machine mind more rational? And because the machine mind is made of mathematics and science, I guess we could even say that the machine mind is perhaps more rational than the human mind, although we don't understand it completely. So that led me to the idea of what if we combine the machine mind and the conscious mind? So I did an experiment where I asked the machine mind to define a term, and the term I used was subconscious. So this long list of text that you see here is the definition of subconsciousness according to the machine mind. And it has a lot of, let's say, nonsense in it, things that don't make any sense. So we have to go through with our conscious mind and pick out the things that do make sense, which are the things that I underlined in red. And then by putting the things that make sense together, we get a definition according to the conscious mind, which was taken from the machine mind. And that definition reads that subconsciousness states that everything in the world is an illusion. We can, of course, never know what things are truly like, but this does not mean that we cannot conceivably discover and manipulate them. In other words, it is the way in which a brain scrambles and recompletes and the conscious circuit and recompletes it. So I did the same procedure again, this time with a different term, or the conscious mind. So the machine mind gave me an answer, and using our conscious mind, we come up with a new definition, which says that the conscious mind is the correspondence of physical sensations and sensory worlds through quality experiences. Multiple possibilities are considered, but as long as anyone can be identified with a particular event, they have given themselves a certain degree of autonomy, since they have human consciousness or the dark side of our brains. The conscious mind is not rational. It cannot be resolved through violence or driven by superstition. And then interestingly, it even says, for no one truly knows enough. And then finally, perhaps the most interesting of all, I did the experiment one last time. And this time I asked the machine mind to define itself. And this is the definition of the machine mind. It's a kind of nonlinearity in the way that the universe knows when it's not experiencing all its boundaries. Time and matter do not have any place in this nonlinear universe. This is because the entire algorithmic process of thinking works, in principle, asynchronously, in a nonlinear and radically distributed universe. It seems to require a radical revolution of logic and cognition. In other words, the development of digital technologies involves an organizational transition from child to adult. And then to put all these statements in conclusion, I would argue that the way in which we perceive reality can be both the machine mind and the human mind. In other words, both of those minds, specifically when they work together, can be correct in interpreting reality. And then for the conclusion, I'd like to show you the video of the GAN-generated images. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for the presentations. Again, to remind, I share my screen and open up for the last round of the comments for the 4 projects. I will show them in the row. Anybody wants to jump in?
Yeah, maybe I just jump in, like just for everybody else and this project, again, like super beautiful outputs. It's more a general comment that I have, because I think what really makes this project or this course kind of relevant for the architectural discussion or also the work that we're doing at the Institute is that you kind of use different parameters, in your case, the text and the input images and so on, to create kind of these beautiful design outputs. And I think in the general architectural sense, this would be like parameters about environment or the site or whatever, and which are then translated through different design tools that we have available. And in this sense, I think that we as designers come into play when it comes to how are we going to combine it, or how are we going to translate the data we have as an input through the design tools that we have. And now that these new techniques, with the GPT-2 or CycleGun or other tools come into play with machine learning and artificial intelligence, I think the way that we make use of this input data is changing quite a lot, because they kind of bringing new interpretations of the input data and kind of already take over a bit of a part of the design process that we are actually responsible for. And on the one hand, I think this is like super powerful, kind of to get new input and new views about this data or this input that we give the tools. But on the other hand, I think, as Simon was mentioning, the more we are able to control or to understand this artificial intelligence, the more we as designers become relevant for the overall design process, I think. So I think the overall approach of kind of getting somehow random outputs in the beginning and getting inspired by them, and then starting to understand them and to control them to get the desired output. I think it's a really nice process. So can just congratulate everyone for these beautiful outcomes. Thanks.
Thank you, Corby.
In that sense, I mean, I think there is something that is quite intriguing with connecting to that with what Simon was mentioning before of the training, no, of these algorithms, and obviously the way the algorithm is trained, I guess it will determine significantly how it performs or what kind of mind it develops, right? And in that sense, I think that as Simon was mentioning, to properly train an algorithm, that there are often millions of inputs, data sets are necessary. And I think that's for me, fascinating element, because of course, typically these algorithms are not trained by architects, right? They are trained by specialists of different sectors, and where AI has been deployed already very significantly since a while. And for example, I was reading this book about China's deployment of AI in agriculture or farming, and which is absolutely fascinating, right? And but so in that sense, I think there is something quite beautiful here that goes beyond the individual work, perhaps, and that it's really embedded in our education system, and how we can begin to collectively train these algorithms with data sets that perhaps differ qualitatively from the one that are normally fed to this kind of algorithms in the more kind of specialistic or specialized AI training protocols, no? Because I think that perhaps can open up a significant chapter in the way AI is deployed, and also in the way, in the kind of results, in the kind of intelligence that we can develop. And so in that sense, I found that this the beginning of something that could be potentially very exciting for the Institute in general, in a sense, to think about this kind of collective effort of feeding data to algorithms, that have a certain understanding and approach and sensibility towards the landscape, towards the environment, and that perhaps are eventually ending up training a set of algorithms that have this kind of sensibility to them, or perhaps that challenge maybe the biases that more typical training sets have, no, which is another big topic, no? So I think this, for me, again, it's also something that perhaps we, as Claudia was saying, this is the beginning of it, but I think there maybe is something very significant that can emerge out of that, and that no single architect or single individual can achieve, I think, at this stage, but it's really a collective effort. And yeah, so in that sense, again, I really congratulate for this pioneering moment, maybe.
Yeah, following with what Marco is saying about the method, there's something extremely attractive of this proposal, or more in general of the method, which is that, of course, as I see it, the content of the course has to do a lot with the continuum culture nature, no? And this is, let's say, the problem or the issue that is at stake. But what I like of the method is that the method itself does not appear as exterior to this issue, but is absolutely immanent to that, no? So the method problematizes something by problematizing its own self, no? So the method itself is immanent to the discussion that wants to approach. And I think that this immanence is something that differs from how theory has been done in the 20th century, where we are operating from a transcendental plane, which is perfect and pure, and from there we go to the problem, which is always exterior, no? So this method somehow interiorizes the problem and makes its own constitution, which actually has to do with a bit with the zeitgeist in general to be entangled with that what we are doing. You know, so I think that this is for me is the relevance that this method has, and I think is super powerful, and that's why I really enjoy it. And beside that, a couple of quick comments also in general. I think that so it's very brave the fact of adding AI in this discussion, also because it seems that AI operates without or with different moral and aesthetic filters. No? So usually when we state things and we say stuff, we are very much also narrowed by our aesthetic and moral filters. No? And then certain things might have something interesting, but we do not say them because no. So for example, when I think it was Bastian that had something about the urban sphere, and without any problem, the AI throws a geometrical, literal sphere, no? Which we all know that when we speak about the sphere is a metaphor to say something else, not to make it geometric and to instrumentalize the geometry of that. The same with the color. When Constantine was saying that hope was white and nature was green, of course, we would not never state it in these terms, but AI has no problems at all in showing it in its pure rawness. And this lack of moral and aesthetical filters, or different moral and aesthetical filters, reminds me a lot of the surrealism and the fact that they were conjuring up the unconscious in order to get rid of these moral and aesthetical filters. So I see a certain surrealist attitude as well here, but rather than appealing to an inner unconscious, it's appealing to an algorithmic outer, let's say, or something like that. But there is a similar process here. And then I also think that the images that are thrown, I don't think that they should be evaluated in terms of how well are illustrating that theoretical approach that we are putting on the table, but I think they operate more as a sort of psychedelics, no? Like the psychedelics track, in the sense that they are not trying to merely illustrate that what we say, but they are really trying to hack, change, operate, add, contribute, generate discussion, and that's why I think that we should push actually this disentanglement, these moments of disentanglement, these moments of distance that we do not completely see familiar to what we are seeing, but not because the illustration is not perfectly good, like the geometrical sphere does not exactly represent what we want to say, but precisely in generating these myths is where there are points of departure that are unexpected and that somehow can be reached for us. So congratulations to all of you, and of course to the faculty, because I really think it's a nice contribution, and yeah, I'm looking forward to see more results in this direction.
All right, I'm going to mention a bit more. After watching all the presentation, I am quite appreciating for all the students' presentation, and because I find actually what they are doing is like create new type of dialogue by raise the question at first, then ask the question to the AI, then let AI answer the question about themselves, and then use that answer to create the image again. I think it's create a kind of very interesting dialogue way. And the AI seems to have a lot to say. That's why we can see the image they generate have a lot of detail, a lot of complex content inside. So for this moment, I feel the 2D image has already become kind of a limitation to limit the dialogue between the human and AI. So I think one point we could improve is like to change the way to perform the output. It's like, for example, we can change the 2D image to 3D. You can find the algorithm which can recognize the 2D image to generate a disk map, then use this map to generate a 3D model from the single 2D image, such as 3D photo in painting. You can search for that, but there's also other algorithms you can use. And then once you have the 3D or at least the 2.5D model from the image, maybe we can create kind of virtual gallery to build up the more immersive experience. It's not only about to improve the performance way, but it's also about to create a more close connection between the human and AI. when we improve the way we dialogue, we talk with the AI, then maybe we can we can get a new inspiration, then lead the dialogue to a new way to generate the novels output we didn't get before. Yeah, this is my comment.
Thank you so much for such a great feedback that brings a lot. It brings a lot to all projects and to the general methodology of the seminar. And it's very inspiring for ourselves as a team, as a faculty team as well. And I think it has really a lot of potential, and we would definitely develop that in the future, the method that we were using here. And I think it really needs to have a next step. From my side, I want to congratulate and thanks all the students, because you're a great team to experiment together. That has been absolutely experimental process that I think you grasped it from the very beginning. And I think we had moments of a bit of a struggle to figure out what is the next step. But I think we did this all together, and with all your maybe step-by-step small contributions, we build up this narrative. So thank you very much for all the presentations. And thank you so much for all the comments. That's so important to really discuss and re-evaluate it all together. And I'm personally taking the notes and going to rethink and rewrite all these meanings for myself. I think we need to close for this set, the morning session. And we still have 4 presentations from this course, which will be presented in the mixed review. These are also very beautiful parts that I invite you all to come and see. And thanks a lot to Jordi, Simon, Ciao. Thanks a lot, Marco, Claudia, Teresa, and Carbinian for all the comments. And thanks a lot for everyone for joining full session. It's a great morning. And I'm looking forward to see you all. And we even don't have a time for the break. And we need to directly start to the next presentation of the landscape and ecology seminar that I had a great pleasure running together with Dr. Marco Paletto and Carbinian Enzinger.
Thank you. We have just one last contribution here that she wanted to show because she thinks that looks quite similar to some of the ones she saw before. So that's Lulu. And yeah, she just brought it home from school, so she wanted to show everyone.
That's beautiful, Lulu. Thank you very much.
There's another one. It's
That's
done with salt.
cool.
It's done with salt and watercolors.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Analog computation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lulu. Thank you very much.
Simon, Jordan, and Xiao for joining this session. It was great to have your comment. Marco, Corbini, and Teresa are not gonna leave because we go on with the next session. Shall we have just 5 minutes break and start at 11:30, Maria? Shall we do that?
Yes.
Thank you. See you shortly.
Okay, see you. My pleasure. See you again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Goodbye.
a lot.
Bye-bye.
Well done, everyone. See you later. Ciao, ciao.
Hello, shall we start back?
Hello. Yes, we need to continue. Hello, Konstantinos.
Hello, how are you?
Great to see
Good
you.
to see
Very
you again.
good. Yeah, amazing to have you today, the presentations. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, thanks for the invitation. I'm looking forward to see the work.
Thank you. Also, Raimund is joining us in a few seconds, and he's finishing another meeting and jumping in.
Do you want to start to do an introduction, Maria? So, we...
Yeah, I think we can slowly start. So we are starting another set of the presentations of the landscape and ecology course that we are running together with Dr. Marco Paletto and Carvini and Enzinger. And we are incorporating the computational strategies and method, environmental readings, 3D scanning in the micro and macro scales in order to develop projects which are like develop a design method which are aiming to propose the development of the water system for the public space in Innsbruck. By water systems, I mean the fountains, cascades, springs, or anything that we will see now at the presentations. We were aiming to develop the proposals for the plaza that we have next to the our campus technique at in Innsbruck, but some other projects are located in the the different regions of Innsbruck, but anyhow, we are located in Alps. And today we have with us, first of all, the faculty and of Synthetic Landscape Lab, Professor Claudia Pasquero, Teresa Gresco was also here, here joining us. And we are very happy to welcome Konstantinos and Raimund, who is joining us today as external jurors. Raimund is the faculty at IAC, Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, and he's focused in robotics and prototyping, and he knows all the key elements of how to actually make things happen. Konstantinos, he has a great experience working with Ecologic Studio in the plenty of the large-scale exhibition projects, which are merging architecture, biodesign, and prototyping as well. And I had a great chance to work with Konstantinos on the project Hortus Pompidou, run by Ecologic Studio and Synthetic Landscape Lab. So we are really looking forward to your comments. And today we have 4 groups presenting within the session. We will keep one group for the afternoon session for the mixed review. So I propose maybe to start directly. Marco, do you want to add anything to my words, and Corby?
I think you have done very well. So we can get going and then comment more later.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So Kevin, Marina, you will be first today. The stage is yours.
Thanks for the invitation, Maria. Happy to be here.
That's great to see you, Raimund. Thank you very much for finding time to join us.
So, could you see our screen? Can you see our screen?
Yes.
Okay. So welcome to our presentation. In our proposal, we looked at water in different systems and how these objects and materials are affected by it. Our aim is to reduce fluctuations in air humidity by moss. And in the beginning, we choose different objects based on their shape and on their connection to water, be it wood that either grows with water or becomes rotten and loses its strength, or lianes that also continue to grow through water, or a stone material that can be shaped by water over decades and regrow by moss, With these different materials, we have always referred to the flow of water through the surface geometry and the sunlight incidence. For our further steps, we choose the object number 2 of our catalog. It is a tree stump that shows a variety of different geometries out of different other objects, and therefore are more variations of how water affects this area. It combines most of the other elements. Of course, there is a rotten wood of the tree stump itself, and then it is regrowed by moss. There is also a pine cone and different leaves and needles from trees, and there's also the tree bud growing out of it. And this makes that object very interesting for us because there are so many different relations to water coming together. The form will be erected as a sculptural element on the Technik campus ground. It is located south next to the Physics faculty in the square that is generated by the y-axis. And here you can see the area that will be transformed by us. This side is very flat, which can be recognized by the high lines that are far apart. Each of the high lines you can see here shows a change in height of 2 centimeters. Yeah, and our substructure is placed into the landscape like that. It will consist of our soil, out of soil, and is built with an earth agar-agar mixture, a kind of terraforming. And in this detail, you can see the change of the surface that was very flat in the last detail we showed. And yes, and here you can see in detail the soil layering process. In the first way, we inject the earth with agar-agar and spreading the next layer over it. And then we're repeating the process. And in the next steps, we're removing the soil, but in this case, with a warming airstream. Yes, this is the methodology of the layering.
To ensure the exact water supply in this area, we had a look at the flow lines of our whole site with the substructure on it. The water around the object is moving from the top right to the bottom left. And in our next step, we just looked at the water impact points of our object to show us where the water will connect first. Here you can see the detail again with the impact points now. And starting from these impact points, the water will wash out trenches from the substructure. Many of these water lines converge and collect at the low point. And in the next step, the resulting trenches that were washed out by the water are covered with ultra-high performance concrete and cured. And this will look like that in detail. After a period of time, the whole substructure will erode and be washed out by water, and only the poured concrete sculpture will stay. The water will move through the structure in the end. The concrete that was poured over the structure will cover the earth like skin, and after some time the substructure will collapse due to weathering. And when the earth underneath the sculpture is completely eroded and washed out, it will look like that. So the sculpture will stand alone, and the area is flat again. Here's a small overview of the procedure. The first is the soil layering structure. Second, the emergence of the trenches. Then the poured concrete sculpture. After that, the erosion of the substructure. And at least the sculpture stands on its own.
Yes, and we made a model in scale of 1 to 100, and it seems to be very stable. and a mixture of moss and buttermilk is then at the end applied to the construction to ensure that the moss grows and the air conditions are getting improved. Yeah, we hope you liked our concept, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you, Kevin, for the presentation. We open for the comments. I think there has been a great progress in the project. Who would like to jump in with the first thoughts and impressions?
Can I start?
Sure.
So sure, maybe we start from the guests.
Okay, I think it's a very interesting scenario, and I really like that transition from the larger scale to the smaller scale, which is more architectural. And the drawings are really beautiful to be done. I wanted to ask a bit more regarding probably the larger scale drawings that you are indicating with the water flowing. Can you elaborate a bit more on either what's the idea or also the data and the parameters that you were using, and what would you like to express out of it? I think it was probably on slides 2, and a bit later it was the one that you're indicating. Yes, this one as well. The previous one.
Which one?
This one, and in general the larger scale ones where you are visualizing the water flows. Yes, I was interested to share a bit more about explanation about the information you used for generating them, and
Okay. Yes, we in the first way we only work with the mesh, with the geometry, and what we can bring out of it, and then we started to play with the water regulation, how the water is flowing along these little and sometimes long areas. And then we thought maybe we can make it possible that we make a structure that is in the first way appearing and then slowly disappearing, and it's only recognizing the structure what comes after over it. And yes, sorry, is this the answer? Or
no, that's
somehow?
I can understand, probably I can read from this drawing specifically that you are following the mesh. It seems that there is a bit of clash with some other information, the green elements, which they are a bit confusing to me, what they are and how they are informing the overall simulation. So I had in mind that probably you could use the mesh itself, but also try to eliminate certain parts of its geometry of generating flows by some other elements, some other properties of the topography you might have. That could be also an additional strategy to think of it, and create some more hierarchies and gradients depending on the richness of the ground and on the ecology of the ground, perhaps.
Yes, in when we now could continue, we would try to make more out of the color and to explain what means which color, and to combine it with the other lines. But at the moment, it's only showing the construction, the under construction. Yes.
Great. And another comment is that probably you could, because you are visualizing most of the things on point clouds, which I really like aesthetically. Maybe as a next step, it could be interesting to jump into something more rendered and materialized in the larger scale as well, similarly as you are doing with the prototyping. That perhaps as an exercise could give you some more feedback to inform also some characteristics and materialities perhaps for the prototyping object.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
So I, first of all, it's a very beautiful project. It's kind of visually very enjoyable, and I very much like this kind of poetic approach of working with time, so that what you are kind of proposing is not something finished. Is actually something that is eroding over time, and then you have even another layer of of the growth of the moss over time. So you kind of have you actually designed more like a process that will manifest itself at different points in time in a different form, which I think is super rich. That being said, maybe sorry. First of all, I have a general question, like what state is this project in? So you said maybe Maria, you said this at the beginning and I missed it, but is this is not a final presentation, or is final presentation of this year, and you will continue?
It's a seminar, so it's not the studio, it's a seminar, so the work is a bit less, but there's a final step. And I think that we were focusing, well, I think one of the aim was, of course, to set up a drawing which will start to communicate the proposal, now that it's elaborated, the way that it's starting to actualize the final proposal and suggest the project and maybe even the construction elements that guys were, or technique that the guys were developing now. But yeah, that's the final, and this is the seminar.
This is a seminar, and it's a seminar we do every year. So in general, it's good to have a comment to suggest how we can be evolved. Like, for example, this year we have introduced the scale of the fountain of the smaller landscape. Before we were exploring larger territory and ecologies. Some of the students are also continuing with us on the thesis, so they will continue working with us later in their pre-diploma and their diplomas. This is a smaller seminar, but then the student will work either with other professors or in this department in the project. So it's good to think how the project can do next or how the course can do next.
Okay, understood. Thanks. Great. So yeah, then topic-wise, I have a few questions and a few comments. So you were jumping a bit, for my taste, a bit too fast between scales. Like you started kind of talking about objects, and maybe again I might have missed this, but these are objects that you have found, you have collected somewhere, and then you scanned them, and this became the basis of your design. And then kind of you made a huge jump in scale to kind of a territorial scale, and you implanted your project there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That answers that. Then yeah, because you have this very strong point of working with erosion and with the time and how your form evolves over time through the water. I think, like, if you really want to continue with this project, I think you can move to actual simulation of how the water would erode the earth below your concrete shell, and also what is the geometry of the shell that is remaining, so that you know that it will actually be structurally kind of sound in the end. So let's say to bring it a little bit, to ground it a little bit more into real world physics, so that you know first of all how it will behave during this erosion, I mean, that can be simulated to some degree, but it's not easy. And I also wanted to ask you how you were simulating these flow lines, etc. And the other aspect is kind of the structural one. If you have a target geometry of the remaining shell, which is basically what it is, then you can design this in a way that you know that it will be structurally sound. So to incorporate a bit more, let's say, physics there would be a proposal. And then one question is, so I didn't see any kind of humans in any of your images, and I have the suspicion that this is kind of deliberately so, and it's a synthetic landscape lab and etc. But I would be interested in understanding how this would be interacted with, how it would be perceived. Like can kind of human agents also have a part into the kind of genesis of this form. So, or is it just, or are you happy with this just kind of eroding away and nobody's watching, or is it kind of a spectacle for people to see?
No, in the first way, we thought we want to regulate the air humidity with moss and how the moss is growing over our construction, and that people go through our model and like this smell of earth and moss, and in dry days, or somehow they maybe can sit under our construction in some break or somehow, yeah. But it's right, we don't have any human in our drawings.
Okay, I can guarantee you it would be extremely popular in Barcelona in summer, and people would kind of swarm there and crawl inside. And actually there are kind of a few moss-covered stone gardens here in the city, which are super beautiful, and kind of sitting next to them is actually a very pleasant thing in summer. Okay, I think I covered everything that I noted down. So thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe I jump in 1 second. I think it was a lovely presentation. In the end, I was quite happy to see the progress that you made in the last few weeks, and then this is really great. And especially, I was quite intrigued by these 2 material experiments you have done, which as we know, with all the limitations, it wasn't easy to do them early on in the program, etc. So maybe the process was they came a bit late in the process, but I think they made a significant impact and contribution to the conversation. Now, maybe the question for me is to understand with you what at the end of this you take out as your key discovery, in a sense. There are these kind of 2 competing elements, not competing, but in a way sort of overlapping elements of the, let's say, the construction process and the moss growth. And at the moment, I don't see them as very much as a part of a single narrative, but they are almost a kind of a accidentally overlapping. And then, of course, the water is the element that connects them both, if you want. But what is it that you take away from these, let's say, at the level of research, perhaps, of the topic that you may want to take further after the let's say, in the following programs?
Yes.
What would
So
you,
how we
you
want
highlight as the core research finding, let's say?
how we want to continue this as a
the project is finished, but the question is what is the core research finding that you have discovered in the process and that you think it's worth bringing forward?
It started with the design with the point cloud, what we learned a lot, what we definitely
in two words, what is the key finding here for you? Like literally two words. Yeah, I don't know. For example, you have just proposed way of constructing, let's say, complex morphology through a process that implies using, let's say, local existing material to create formwork, right? That then it's kind of eroded away, and it leaves you with a particular kind of morphology and shell that is, in your intentions at least, apt at hosting these kind of living organisms and living systems. So that, for example, it could be understood as a sort of a research topic in itself, and it has got precedence. For example, it just comes to my mind Paolo Soleri, who was who moved in Arizona in the desert, and while there he perfected this technique of casting concrete domes on mountains of sand, of earth that he found there. So, and then this technique in a way became part of something bigger for him, like a philosophy of frugality, if you want, a philosophy of doing the most with the less effort in terms of material, expenditure of energy. So and then even a bigger philosophy of Arcosanti, so it became a kind of model for a way of living together, of sharing, of creating communities, where actually the material technologies, the construction technologies were not only technical per se, but that they were embodying a kind of a philosophical approach and understanding to the world, and eventually a model of urbanization. So that is to say that, I mean, the whole idea of this project, or at least the brief of the course, was not necessarily to just design a fountain, but it was an excuse to maybe through this particularly interesting typology or urban typology, which perhaps today, like many other, has been completely sanitized, of its dynamic elements, except perhaps for the water splashing, but everything else has been erased from it. That's the, we thought it was an interesting departure point for this kind of exploration. I think your project offers quite a lot in that sense, but maybe it would be interesting for you to recognize it more directly as well, right? We haven't pushed as hard for a final definitive design solution, because this is a seminar, not necessarily a design studio, but at the same time, that means that you have to kind of elaborate what you get out of it in a way that it can be significant to a studio or to future research. I think that's maybe something that it's worthwhile trying to do. And obviously the construction technique could be one aspect, but the other aspect could be more focused on the water cycle, for example. Where is the water coming from, where is it going, what happens to it when it encounters these plants or systems growing on it. How does that reflect to the microclimate around, or to the interaction with the surrounding public realm, and so on. So that could be another topic. How does that become a node into a larger water system in the city of Innsbruck. Now, so that's the kind of territorial dimensions of it. But yeah, and you kind of left us a little bit hanging in there with, you know, what is that effectively really interests you, or what is that you have discovered that excited you? And I think that, you know, it would be nice to know.
And if I may add, because Marco mentioned it now also, like the simple question, if it's a fountain, yeah, really, where does the water come from?
Yes, we only thought the raining water is this part in our fountain. Yes, not with pumps.
No, and just the rainwater is influencing our object.
Okay.
Thank you guys. Thank you for the comments also, everyone. We need to rush a bit, so I would need to close this this comment session. But yeah, congratulations for the work. I think there has been a really great step the last weeks that we see now, and I love the proposal for the construction, and it brings me to the idea how we could actually build it up. We will come maybe now more after the presentation to the personal feedback. For now, we would need to move on. So thank you for the presentation. And I just need to a few seconds. And next we have Peter and Lucas. Please start the presentation.
You can see our screen?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. We are Peter and Lucas, and we are going to present you our journey from the patterns of bark to a living improvement of space. We were practically interested in the skin of the trees because the skin usually offers a structure to form spaces that have the most diverse properties. This also seems to offer living space to many different creatures. So we went out and collected scans of different tree species located around the university in Innsbruck and also in Italy. To find the best scan surface for our project, we then examined these scans for their topographic diversity. We were looking for the density of covering high points, the number of overhanging areas, and the maximum difference in depth. We then defined several indicators to direct compare the scans. Here you can see the ordered results. The future further to the right, the more change in topography, and the higher, the more overhanging points an object has. So we choose the tree with the best values. The yellow crosses in the topographic analysis show the overhanging areas of the scans. The red lines show the occurrence of high and low points. As you can see, in two out of 3 cases, the inhabitants of the bark had a positive influence on the final result. In the scan 5, the bark is overgrown with moss. Scan 9 just shows a deep structure of a bark, and on scan 7, a lichen has grown on the bark and produces a higher variety of topographic situations. Our fascination with barks and their ability to provide an optimal environment for many different creatures inspired us to translate these properties to a larger scale. Our idea was to create spaces in which a variety of living creatures can nest, but whose quality also have a positive effect on the spatial perception of humans. means colliding a cooling environment on hot summer days, improving of the surrounding air conditions, and also creating an interesting object on which you can discover more and more than the longer you watch it.
Since water is usually the source and measure of life, we have studied how rainwater behaves on the surfaces of our scans with the highest topographic variety. We always oriented the scanned object as we found them in the environment. In this case here, you see the bark overgrown with moss positioned vertically. We looked for the flat places where the rain was most likely to fall on. These are surrounded by the black gradient in the image. The dark dots are the landed raindrops. The light blue trace shows the path that gravity imposes on the water. Due to the vertical position, the water runs in a straight line to the bottom. The structure does not provide enough horizontal space to allow larger accumulations of water. We notice the same thing with the scanned bark. However, the behavior was different with a lichen scan found on a piece of bark in horizontal position. That this scan has a particularly high density of high points cloud could already be seen in the previous topographic analysis. Here, during the study of the rainwater behavior, the interesting shape of the high areas is emphasized. Water is collecting there and then flowing in the valleys. This leads to a particularly high diversity of different saturation states of water. On the sunny peaks, water can temporarily collect, but will probably evaporate again quickly and enrich the surrounding air with moisture. And in the valleys where the water collects, a steady humidity can be guaranteed. Closed valleys create standing water, while open ones combine to form rivers and allow water to circulate through topographic differences. Due to this, we decided to use the topographical characteristics of the lichens for our fountain proposal. And we also took a look at what lichens are and how they work to implement this in our later design.
Lichens. There are over 30,000 species of lichens. Each of them consists of symbiosis of two different organisms. Always a fungus that provides sufficient water and nutrients, and an algae that feeds the fungus with sugar through photosynthesis. The special thing about lichens are they can grow almost everywhere. But they need almost a whole year for 1 millimeter of growth. Even in the laboratory, the growth cannot be noticeably accelerated as a recent study showed. Since we can use the lichen itself rather difficult for our design, we would like to take their form and their principles as an inspiration. As an ideal place, we thought of the holes in the courtyard of the University in Innsbruck, which official function seems still to be unknown. To do further studies at the site, we also scanned the location via photogrammetry.
Here you see the analysis of the existing environment. The rainwater that is collected by the courtyard is led into the area through an artificial drainage. In addition, there is a sewer on the site, which may be of use for the later proposal. Our focus by the analysis of the site was the topographical characteristics combined with the hours of sunlight the surface is receiving in the hottest area from May to October. So the light yellow areas are marking the highest slope, and a grid in a resolution of 5 centimeters shows, with a gradient from blue to red, how many sun hours every point has during this period. If we zoom in, you can see that there is a shadow ring in the inside of the site, and a little shade which is cast by already existing plants and the gully cover, for example. But the most of the area has a high number of sun hours. In order to leave shady areas shaded and to give some shade to the hottest areas, we used the topographical diversity of our chosen scan and extruded its shape from the ground depending on the sun hour values. Thus, a high diversity of climatic conditions and different microclimates were created, where different living beings can find a habitat. In order to incorporate the principle of lichens in the design and to take advantage of the positive properties on our environment, we have selected the places with the most hours of sunshine. There, marked by the green circles in the drawing, we want to place algae in a closed system which generate the necessary energy for our fountain through photosynthesis. The water needed by the algae is then pumped with this energy from the water reservoirs to the highest points and then distributed. At the end, the generated structure should be printed from natural material in 2 parts. The topography should be printed out of wood material, and the vessels for the algae and the water transport system should be printed of transparent biodegradable material. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you guys for the presentation. We open for the comments.
Okay, I can start. So as far as I understand, the fabrication strategy is kind of a bit embryonic in the sense that you have an initial idea, but did you actually make any prototypes? Did you materialize any of your ideas?
No, we hadn't the chance yet to do experiments with this.
Okay,
So,
I think it's probably, you know, it's fine in the context of this seminar, and obviously you kind of learned a lot about 3D scanning and point cloud manipulation and all of this. Okay, I have a few questions. So you mentioned briefly the selection criteria from your initial, let's say, investigation of the barks and the lichen, that you had, and I noted overhangs, depth, and like something that amounts to kind of overall surface complexity. And I'm wondering how you selected those criteria. So these are the criteria by which you would select your sample that you then choose to kind of scale up 1,000-fold.
Yeah, we were searching for indices that explains the variety of the topography of our scans. So because we thought if the variety of the topography is high, we will get a high variety of microclimate, maybe, because there are places where water can stay, there are places where water can flow, there are places where sunny areas are, and there are also places where there's shadow. And so there are a lot of places with different criteria of climate, and that's why we choose these indices of the topography.
Okay, so the target qualities for which these criteria should be kind of should you know be maximized to generate them. These target properties, now I heard something like yeah, like you just want a highly differentiated surface to create different microclimates. For what? Like for people to have a cool space, or just for to make to make a funky surface, or do you want to support the lichen growth in your project? So here, that to me was not so clear.
Okay.
Why these kind of design drivers? What are they really, and where do they come from? Like what those decisions? Yeah, and then I also found a bit weird. I mean, sorry. Generally, I really like the project. I think the methodology is kind of rich. To look at natural objects and try to extract principles and then apply them to something much bigger. But for example, you studied vertical surfaces like the tree barks and how they relate to the water flow. And then the site that you chose is like a very horizontal spot. So I would have expected more like a wall, if anything, on the university campus. So there the kind of the translation, or the step from the analysis or from the observation to the design, kind of there's a few kind of decisions that I don't really follow easily. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so I don't know if we mentioned it. So the aim of this proposal is to improve the spatial experience for humans in the surrounding, and through the cooling and through the improving of the surrounding air. And also we want to, with this new surface, because you also mentioned it's the site is a really flat area, and we want to improve it and to give more space for living, for all kind of living creatures like microorganisms, insects, or something. They can find a place in these topographic thing. Yeah.
Okay, a garden of sorts.
Yeah.
Maybe, Peter, it would be easier if you don't make many detours with your words, and just say that the site is actually a rain garden. No, it is in the middle of the entrance to the university, and it is designed as a rain garden. Basically, it's a porous surface made of rocks and stones, where all the water, all the rainwater flowing on the piazza, actually it is led into that point to percolate down into the soil. No, it's a rain garden. That's what it's there for. That's why it is a particularly depressing rain garden, because it lays most of the year. Well, in winter is a bit better when it snows, because it gets all white, etc. But at the same time, most of the year, it is rather depressing. Nothing grows. It's some kind of leftover rocks. It looks abandoned. I don't know if you have a photo, but everybody looks at it and wonder what the hell it is, because obviously it doesn't look like a garden at all. And so
it is already supposed to be a rain garden.
It is already a rain garden. It's designed for that. It works as a rain garden. The problem is that it just looks like a depressing pile of rocks. So, I mean, at a very basic level, without saying too many things, you know, they are designing a rain garden which, beside filtering and percolating the water back into the soil, it creates a surface where water is retained for a certain period of time to enable creatures such as mosses and so on to grow. So now, because we are obviously the Synthetic Landscape Lab, we are quite interested in figuring out how the substratum, let's say, you know, kind of enables this process, and so that's that's what you know, I think what they've been trying to do. I think also in terms of the fabrication, you know, we, of course, there were many limits, unfortunately, to the use of the lab in this period. Otherwise, there would have been certainly more prototypes. But there is a key precedent, of course, the hortus sculpture that we have 3D printed in the lab there. You know, has this ability to create morphologies, to create pockets, as the pixelation. So maybe, Peter, it would have been nice for you to refer a little bit more directly to actual examples of technologies, in this case 3D printing technologies, that could be used to create such a substratum, and that could work in that context very beautifully. And in that sense, maybe it would have given us an easier way to show how the point cloud becomes a kind of a let's say medium to coordinate information that comes from the printing and for the fabrication world with information that comes from you know, the living habitat of these organisms. So, you know, effectively the data of humidity, radiation, and so on and so forth that you have mapped, you know. So I think, you know, personally, I love the project where it went. There are really some good moments and so on, but at the same time, I don't understand why you cannot make it much more straightforward. I mean, there's no need to talk about always you know, this, you know, it's what it is. It's a rain garden, you know. And to be fairly honest, if we actually would manage to build it, I guess it would bring a lot of interest in, you know, to the piazza and so on. It could have a lot of interesting repercussions, and it's a great spot, the one you choose, because it's just waiting to be reinvented, you know. And yeah, why not? I mean,
it's kind of a hole in the ground, right? So
yeah, it is. Do you have a picture, Peter? Like, can we see it, like for real? Like not as a point cloud, but as just as a photo.
Yeah, we have the scan from the top. 1 second. Here at the right.
So you could suspend the cable robot there from the edge.
Exactly.
Can I add a few things? Yeah, I think it's a very interesting project. And actually, Marco, you really helped me understand much better the whole part of the fabrication intention, at least this symbiosis of the algae in this garden. You have a lot of interesting ingredients from the very first time. And I can see you have a very systematic work in terms of analysis, which I think it would be useful if you try also to use this kind of methodology with catalogs and different very simple trials of simulation in the design research. I think that will help you a lot getting some different variations, and then understand a bit better, both in terms of properties as well as in design outcomes, what would be more interesting for you to go further. And also, I think it's also very, very good that you're using both the medium of the point cloud as well as of the mesh rendered surface. I think there's a good connection in the two, and it can bring you even more ideas and further design outcomes if you explore the digital materiality of the meshes, as you already are doing with the point clouds. I found very interesting the drawing with the solar analysis. After the solar analysis, I mean, I understand the whole process and where are you going at, but after that, it's maybe a couple of slides. If I'm not mistaken, this is environmental analysis. Yeah. And probably it was the next slide.
When the change in the topography.
Yeah. I think I would just go back here somehow and try to rebalance certain properties and rerun this iteration going because after this part, I got a bit confused with the whole articulation of the flow lines and the other elements that you are juxtaposing in the final outcome. So I would go one step back here, which I think it has some very interesting potential design-wise, and go further. And then another comment, I don't find also convincing the flow lines, to be honest, also as a water network. And I'm not really sure if you need it as well, or maybe it's also a graphical issue which is confusing me together with the algae. And going back to the rendered, let's say the final proposal, which is this one, great. I have also a few comments. Now probably understand a bit better why the algae is concentrated where it is after Marco's comments with the connection of Ortus. But then I would expect with the principles that you are using to show something which is quite porous and let's say is living together with the mesh, is not covering the mesh itself, but maybe the mesh is very porous and it's getting inside the algae, and you're exploring more certain properties of it. And I would also be very interested to understand better the scale of it. I see it's a fountain, but it would be helpful maybe to use some humans, non-humans in the model itself as a matter of scale and exploration of different scenarios for you to understand it better. And yeah, I would also run another solar analysis on top of this and maybe do an iterative process in the design and see how this would work. That's it.
Yeah, thank you for the comments.
But Peter, don't you think that this image doesn't possess the qualities that some of the drawings before have? Or
yeah,
don't you think
I think
that
you're
there is
right,
a kind of a loss of information almost, no?
Yeah, but I think for the presentation, I thought it's good to see it also maybe short in 3D, because then you could have a better imagination maybe.
That is absolutely
I know the drawing is not.
No, but it's more simple, Peter. I think this is more simple. Like it's I think it's a conceptual problem still. I think that it's not I think it's great that you did it, no, but I think you have to ask yourself, no, why is that let's say the level of information and richness that the other image possess, this one doesn't, no? And how can you find a method to carry forward or maybe even multiply that level of information and richness? And I think for me, this is a conceptual step, because it's really about looking at this solar radiation map And rather than looking at it from the point of view of an engineer that says, you know, look, now I know how solar radiation works and I'm gonna figure out this design and fix it and, you know, make it work well. The other point of view is the point of view of the gardener, no? That says, oh, look, you know, now I can see where the radiation predominantly heat, and I'm going to position there the plants that I know like most, you know, stay in the sun, in the dry. I'm going to put somewhere else the other one. And then there is the point of view of the plant itself, or the alga, that is kind of seeking, you know, that radiation as an opportunity to survive and proliferate. So I think that, you know, at a kind of as a designer, you need to be able to allow yourself to shift this perspective, right? And to kind of enjoy the drawings that you make and interpret the drawing that you make from this different perspective. So, of course, there is a necessity for you to make it work. But there is indeed, but specifically in this point of view, make it work, it doesn't mean necessarily optimize it in the traditional way. It means finding a way of breeding, you know, that diversity, that richness that is necessary for a garden to actually be healthy, and as a consequence also beautiful. And then, you know, the conversation could be what comes first. For example, Gilles Clément argues that there is nothing that comes first, is a feedback loop, and you need to be in it in a way, working as a gardener to continuously tweak, manipulate, readjust. And that's what Constantino was suggesting, you know, make it a feedback, make it a feedback loop, you know, like create a kind of iterative process here. And so, you know, I think this is where for me the seminar becomes useful beyond, let's say, the proposal, because it's really developing a new sensibility for how you can use tools and techniques that some of them are new, some of them have been around for a while, but essentially it's how do we make sense of them, no? So what are the points of the point cloud really representing? How can you use them in your role of engineer, gardener, designer, you know, depending, or even, you know, alga, and so, yeah. So that's, I think that's where it will be. That's where it becomes really interesting, because then the process, it doesn't narrow down into one solution, and it's not even like using analysis as a way to, let's say, supplement the lack of creativity, as a way of finding forms that you don't feel you have in yourself, because actually you do. But it's more, it's actually you kind of being able to enter this conversation that is generative and it's creative and it's continuously changing and potentially enriching and beautiful and beautifying, you know. So, and then there is a lot of fun and there's a lot of beauty there, rather than, you know, kind of, you know, struggle or, you know, pressure to find the optimal, you know. It's a better place to be as a designer, I think. So, you know, you have created this place for you to be in, and I think now you should just kind of revel in, enjoy it, and, you know, find all sorts of ways to represent it, 3D print stuff, grow stuff, you know, do more analysis, feedback loop, you know, animate it, you know, find all sorts of ways to explore and expand the beautiful complexity of this ecosystem that is your rain garden, no?
Thank you very much for the comments. I need to rush everybody. Thank you very much for the great discussion, Peter, Lucas, for the presentation. I propose to have next presentation too, to see both David and Anne, and then have a comment. Well,
I will
David,
shut up next time also.
I don't know, maybe Anne, should you go first? I don't see David face yet here. And also he should be a gentleman and give you a turn. So Anne, and then David, you present straight after Anne.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. For my urban fountain, I was interested in air purification by plants. In general, Innsbruck has a good air quality, but is rather high in fine dust. Since the university campus lies next to big roads, the highway, the airport, it seems suitable to investigate this area further. I created a collection of 3D scans of mosses around the campus to analyze the structure and the surface of it. Moss has perhaps the best air cleansing capabilities of any plant. This is because of the vast surface area of moss plants that capture all sorts of pollutants and harmful particles. Fine dust particles are held onto the charged surface of the moss, and it is then either disintegrated by the moss microbiome or just washed away by the next rain. Yeah, this close-up really gives an idea of the complexity of the surface and also on how the altitude changes. You can perfectly see the steep elements that are shown with the flow lines. And you can also see with the sun exposure points that there are a lot of areas that are covered by the moss. So there are higher and lower parts, and the lower parts are covered by the higher parts in front of them. Yeah, moss will not perish if it dries out, but its ability to clean the air will stop until it is saturated again. To prevent the complete drying out, I firstly analyzed the possible shadow on this particular site. Unfortunately, the site is not vegetated in the front, so around 12 a.m. there is no shade that will protect the moss. Following, I analyzed the solar radiation throughout the day. For my design process, I tried to use the information and analysis to create a base form for the moss to grow on. The result of my previous shadow analysis is a large amount of points that differ in distance between one another. And the denser the points are, the more shade there will be throughout the day. In addition, the density is affected by the ground surface. As it is not entirely even, there are steeper and flatter parts. And if the steeper parts are facing the sun, following there will be a stronger solar radiation. And that results in the points being denser. My design process can be illustrated in 4 simple steps. The first image shows the result of the sun analysis on a 2 by 2 meter large ground. For a change in altitude, I then elevated the points in the z-axis according to their density. The densest points will be elevated the highest. And by connecting the points with the closest lines, I was able to create a network. And finally, I increased the volume of the network and also the amount of fibers. The result is a structure that consists of vertical and horizontal fibers. The vertical lines are the natural rain flow, and the horizontal contour lines connect those rain flow lines. The fibers can be 3D printed and should consist of a textured and durable material for the moss to hold onto it properly. And to initiate the moss to grow, a mixture of buttermilk and moss is then applied on these fibers. I applied this idea or this proposal then to my ground, to my site. And yeah, as the moss takes time to prosper, the surface of the structure will change over time. And of course, this process or this proposal does not depend on the location. It can be used as a base form for any place where you have a certain amount of solar radiation and a certain amount of shadow. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne, very much for the presentation. David, are you here? Couldn't see David. It's strange. Okay, so
Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately, David is not online. Maybe something happened. So I invite everybody to comment the project of Anne.
Should I just let the screen on?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's
perfect.
Who would like to begin? Yeah,
it was a very interesting workflow. I really liked it, and the diagrams and this explanation, how you developed it. Yeah, especially this one. I think it's quite successful. I have one comment regarding your graphics. I can see you have an obsession to have everything black and white, which is making me mixed feelings. Like on one hand, I'm feeling like I don't have let's say the ability to understand different identities by color and information. I just have to persist more in the articulation of the lines to understand what is what, and in the end, the mix of the network that you are creating is something hybrid, which probably cannot recognize as well as if you were using some different colors. So yeah, I was wondering about this a bit, why probably it's intentional, why you did this.
I think it's just because I tried to make a proposal or an idea and not a finalized project, because in this case, it can be placed anywhere, or it can be used on any surface, it can be used on any ground. And yeah, in my opinion, it was easier to understand since in this case, it has no connection with colors. Like it's just to really show how I worked or how my workflow was. And yeah, I think that showed it the best.
And I wanted also to ask about the territorial scale. How do you envision this structure? I'm missing probably a bit of the jump from the smaller structure, which is more easy for me to understand a bit how it's generated, with how this can be adapted from one scale to the other, and how this could work as a network.
Yeah, so basically this part is a small part of the large site I analyzed. And just to show the process in a better way, I didn't use the whole area because it is quite a complex structure then, as you can see here in the end. And just to clarify, or just to show properly how I came from one step to another, that is just yeah, a diagram and not a...
Yeah, the process is clear. I'm asking about the concept probably, or one step further, what this could become in the real world. Or I don't know, maybe it's not real world, maybe it's just virtual, maybe it's just a datascape that you are making. But yeah,
in this case,
the vision of it.
It is probably more virtual than for the reality, but it can, of course, simply be included in the reality. And I thought of it more like it could be a piece of art that also acts as air purification. Like with the moss on top of it, it changes, it probably constantly changes its form, or not its form, but where the moss will grow. Maybe there is, when the weather is really bad, when there is a lot of rain, the moss head has a lot of moisture, and it is probably gonna grow everywhere. But if there is a lot of sun, if the sun shines throughout the whole day, it probably will dry out a little. And so it constantly changes and is maybe also a living piece of art, so to say.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah. I think it's a great idea to make something which is like a land art and is interacting with the weather, and I would really like to see it more, how it could evolve.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Again, very beautiful work, like very seductive. All these graphics, and also I don't know if you can go back to this aerial view of the the entire thing with the network on it.
This one?
Yeah, exactly. So so you kind of get a feeling how your structure would kind of invade this terrain, a little bit like a moss. So, and here is also where I find it slightly questionable, or let's say where you could reinforce your argumentation. So the main question to me is like, something that is good for moss, does it have to look like moss? You know, because it seems that what you're presenting as your goal is, you know, this air purification performance, let's say, and like provided by the moss. And what you're giving is, like Marco called it before, like the substrate for the organism to grow on. And you derive the form and the shapes of this substrate from an analysis of the kind of the species that you would like to host. So isn't that a little bit strange to some extent? You know, like if I want to grow, I don't know, if I want to grow salad, I don't really need to derive the shape of my greenhouse from the shape of the salad. So the connection there, and maybe you have kind of a strong point there that I didn't get, but like the connection there between the understanding the organism that you would like to host and to the design proposal. For me, it's totally valid to say, you know, this is an inspiration that comes from the morphology of the organism, and then it's being translated into a different scale, and then, yeah, okay, the organism comes back onto it. But if it is kind of, you know, presented like in this linear fashion, then immediately it appears to be a little bit questionable, this connection. So that would be kind of my critique, at least of this step, because the other way would be to go one step back from and I understand this is not the scope of the seminar, but since we're discussing it, like to go back from the purely morphological analysis of the organism to, let's say, more genetic kind of analysis, like how did the moss kind of evolve to have these super complex surface with super high surface density, etc. And then, you know, like basically going one step behind the actual manifest morphology and look at the rules of that have driven the evolution of these forms. So I think then it would become even stronger, let's say.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, somebody could say it's just a modern duck.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good advice. Okay, I think that would also be very interesting to look at. Thank you.
Many thanks for the comments. I think there has been a great suggestion how to push this work further. For me, now it's a pity that we are kind of closing the presentation. I think that all three projects have a lot to complete it. We still need to do a step to really finalize that. And that could be a design proposal now but I think we're closing, maybe not yet at that level, but still I think there has been a great step for all the students for setting up a drawing technique, for developing the multi-scalar approach. And I think there is also a great progress in the last few weeks that you have done, and I do really appreciate all your response to all the comments and your involvement and to the development of your work. So thank you very much for the projects. Do we have any other comments for this session?
Thanks, Raimond and Konstantinos, for the comment. I think they were very insightful for the course. And thanks for putting together the course. I think the shift to the design of a prototype in a location that is also near to the university is something that potentially we could develop further next year, eventually starting to prototype also element of landscape, which or of synthetic landscape, horizontal landscape. We had in the past developed prototyping on many vertical synthetic landscape. In this case, we could work more with a real scape, and I think this could be an interesting step forward for the seminar. I don't know yet in which scale, but that for me will be a good step forward.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation again, Maria, Claudia, and Marco. I'm aware that it is a seminar and we kind of commented it a bit like a design studio. So in that sense, maybe that is a bit unfair, but also it's good, I think, to see, you know, the pure, let's say, teaching of skills and put like it's in a seminar more the case, and put it in the context of what it could become if it was kind of more of a design course. So yeah, really beautiful work, very inspiring, and thanks again for having me.
Thanks a lot, Raimond. That's great to have you. Okay, so if we don't have any other notes, no?
I think I spoke too much already, but for me, really what I look forward is to get the machines moving again and get the lab working, and I think that's what it's necessary to do, to try to reconnect with the elements of fabrication and production, still within the context of the considerable progress I think we made in this year, this remote year. We were kind of forced online more, and you know, we explored virtual reality, we explored artificial intelligence, we explored a whole new set of workflows, which I think in a way or another are already contributing to the conversation to move forward. I think that's really exciting. But I think especially this seminar, this program shows that we are ready to go back to do some fabrication and some work on real prototypes. And I think that there were a lot of really great elements here to inspire a new wave of experimentation, of material experimentation. And yeah, I think I agree with Claudia that it will be really exciting to maybe also start a new series of prototypes that engage with the landscape much more directly, the urban landscape, maybe at some point also the you know, so-called natural landscape, if you want. And yeah, and so maybe that could be the starting point of that. And I really feel that the rain garden in front of the school needs something to transform it. Is actually makes a lot of sense in terms of what it does, but it just looks so depressing. So I mean, maybe that should be the next thing.
Yeah.
Also, it has like this petri dish shape. Just you know, like used to work with petri dishes a lot. I know Maria to grow stuff inside, so it's just an oversized petri dish.
Yeah, it's an urban petri dish.
Yeah, it has been a bit painful to be all the time in a distance. We even didn't manage to meet at the end of the term. So I hope that we will see each other next semester. We really hope to be offline and stop being just this of the screen. So thanks again everybody. Thanks to all the students team for working with us this semester. I hope you did enjoy it and got some new knowledge and inspirations. Konstantinos, Raimond, thank you very much for joining us. We close the, well, it's a long morning session. We have 1 hour break and we come back at 3 o'clock for the mixed review, where we will have short bits from all the seminars that we were running this semester. The Synthetic Landscape Lab. Of course, we invite Konstantinos, Raimond to come listen or just watch the YouTube sharing that you can find in our poster. And we hope to see everybody soon. Thanks again, everybody.